All right, welcome everybody to episode number 5 of Can We Make Total or Impact Wrestling? I did it again. Impact Wrestling, the number one promotion in the world on Total Extreme Wrestling 2013. We do have a 2019 roster update, June 2019 roster update, courtesy of Haz. Haz usually will comment on these videos, so if you're interested in picking up the roster update that we have, or his new July roster update, which we'll be getting from Haz here pretty soon, and we'll probably do a different stream here where we work on maybe AEW or MLW, Major League Wrestling, CZW, one of those other promotions that are out there in the world, and see what we can do with those. But that being said, we are currently working on Impact Wrestling, and we've gone through both the history of Impact Wrestling leading all the way up to this date, and we've talked about the NWA/TNA World Heavyweight Championship, and that title lineage there. Really, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship was sort of deviated away from TNA, I guess is what I want to say, when Impact Wrestling decided to start doing their own thing championship-wise and getting away from the NWA. And so those title lineages don't quite sync up. So you've got, for example, like Ric Flair is a 9-time NWA champion, but with that, I think he held a TNA championship, but those two don't combine together. Same with guys like Christian Cage and AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, and so on and so forth. Kurt Angle, actually, I don't think ever won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I know he was the first ever Impact World Heavyweight Champion. Jeff Jarrett is another example of guys like that. So we went through all of that. So for this episode, we will be going through our TV taping in 2 days, and we will be coming up on the end of July 2019. So we'll go through the TV taping, get into the new month. We'll see where we end up money-wise, and we'll see if we can jump up to that number one spot quicker than expected. I don't think it'll happen within the first month. We've got a long road to go to get to where WWE is, who is the number one promotion in the game. We will also be talking about the NWA World Tag Team Championship, and then with it the Impact World Tag Team Championship, because that lineage dates back to the 90s with WCW, and so on and so forth. And then then Impact had it for a while, and then when the NWA separated from TNA and NWA split, then NWA took their title back in 2007. But we'll talk about that as we go through while we're waiting for load times and things like that. And as you can see, we pick up right where we left off, post One Night Only in July. Talia Madison has joined our roster. Jeremiah Snake has now left Lucha Underground, which is Sami Callihan. Daichi Hashimoto has been released by BJW, and I think we were just kind of keeping an eye on him performance-wise, see how he did. He's unemployed at the moment. I'm not going to pick him up. And then Scott D'Amore got his pay-per-appearance deal with BJW. So our roster's a little bloated, but it actually worked out really well for us in that situation, because we were able to put on a really, really good pay-per-view, probably the best pay-per-view that Impact has had in a long, long time. Now we can go back to all years and see we don't have much lineage to go back on during our time at Impact Wrestling, but even just in our short time running the promotion, this is head and shoulders above anything we've done. Especially attendance, it wasn't a sellout, which was probably to be expected. The buy rate was a little low, which is also to be expected. But you know what? We're Impact Wrestling. We're building something here. So if the TV guys want to get out and the pay-per-view buyer or the pay-per-view carriers want to get out, that's fine. Because we're getting somewhere, and the companies that hang on with us are gonna see that and reap those rewards, and the ones that don't, unfortunately, we'll leave them in the dust. So let's move to the next day. We'll talk about the World Tag Team Championships in Impact, which the title lineage for this championship started back in 1992 with World Championship Wrestling. And the likes of Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes, the Hollywood Blondes, Four Horsemen, held this title during its brief incantation in the WCW. This was an alliance between WCW and the NWA to combine for this World Tag Team Championship. And then when WCW pulled out of the NWA in 1993, then the title went back to the NWA. And we'll pick up on that in just a moment here. But our next day has come around, and here we are. Not much going on, kind of a slow day on that Tuesday. And we've got nothing going on today, so we'll move on. And we are up to the NWA reclaiming their championship in 1993 when WCW pulled out of the NWA. The tag team championships didn't get used again. These particular tag team championships didn't get used again until 1995 when the Rock and Roll Express won the titles, and then they kind of were vacated off and on forever and a day. Rock and Roll Express in this time between 1995 and 1998 held the titles on 3 separate occasions, and I think after every single title reign, they had the titles vacated. Once because there was a weird match with PG-13. If you don't remember who PG-13 is, they were the hype men for the Nation of Domination when they first debuted in WWE. And then there was a weird match where Rock and Roll Express and PG-13, I don't know what happened, but Rock and Roll Express had their titles vacated. Then they won them back when they beat PG-13, and then they vacated them again when Ricky Morton had his deal with Smoky Mountain and the Express broke up. Then they won them a third time in 1998, and they didn't even really win them. I think they were just handed to them, the Rock and Roll Express, that is. And then a very, very weird time in NWA history where they had a working relationship with the WWE. And I can remember on numerous occasions seeing the NWA World Tag Team Championships on WWE programs. And this was the time where you saw the Headbangers, a WWF contracted tag team, win the NWA Tag Team Championships. You also saw the New Midnight Express with Bart Gunn and Bob Holly win those championships. And then it started to go back into more traditional NWA tag teams, the Brotherhood, Team Extreme, Murder Inc., the Border Patrol, I think, held it a couple of times. Rock and Roll Express got him back again. You had David Flair held him at one point when he was in NWA for a minute. The Heavenly Bodies, not the new Heavenly Bodies, Chris Nelson and Vito DiNucci, but even those two, honestly, weren't the new Heavenly Bodies. The Carino brothers picked up that gimmick after a little while too. But yeah, a lot of turmoil with this tag team championship. Not a lot of really lengthy reigns for anybody until you got to the Heavenly Bodies in 2001 when they had just shy of a year run. And then it kind of jumped around for a little bit. Nobody held a reign longer than 90 days after that. When you get to 2002, and TNA gains full control over these tag team titles. And since we are on our next day, we'll get to the TNA portion of the NWA World Tag Team Championships and the chaos that was these titles. And when I say chaos, I mean absolute just carnage. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. Because we are on a new day. New day! And we have a TV taping tonight. So, let's see, check out our news. New champion in Lucha Underground, Sammy Guevara. They're also having some ratings issues, so that's a problem for them. And I wanna take a tour of this company. They're financially comfortable. They have one TV show but do not run pay-per-views. Okay. Number 13 in the world in popularity, 12th richest company overall. And yeah, there you go. Let's see. I wonder if they would be open to us taking control of their company. They are not. Okay. That's fine. Whatever. Oops. The game's yelling at me. There we go. Okay, so no real issues there. We've got nothing going on. TV taping tonight, and we'll jump right into that because now we have finished with our build-up to our pay-per-view, and now it's going to be time for us to look at our champions and where we want to go with those. We still haven't awarded the Impact Grand Champion yet, and I don't know if I will, but it's there. We'll start with the Knockouts champion, Tessa Blanchard. Tessa's going to need a new opponent, and we'll figure out who that's going to be during this series of TV tapings. The World Tag Team titles, Phoenix and Pentagon held on to those, so we'll have to find another tag team for them to battle with, possibly the Briscoes. We'll kind of see where we're at with that. The X Division Championship, Will Ospreay took down Rich Swann, who had won the title back in January. Will Ospreay is the current Impact Champion, so we'll have to take a look and see who we want him to start feuding with. And then, of course, the World Champion, newly crowned World Champion, Sami Callihan, at the one-night-only pay-per-view. So Sammy's going to need a new challenger. Might be John Hennigan. It might not be John Hennigan. I'm not really sure where we're going to take that. If we want to keep that rivalry going, we've got to find ways to keep it fresh, though. And that's going to be the key, is keeping that championship fresh. Or at least keeping that chase fresh. And having John Morrison continue that chase, I don't know if that works for me. And I feel like maybe having Johnny both as the hunter and the hunted as a grand champion, where the grand champion becomes sort of this de facto number one contender to the championship, almost in the same fashion that the X Division champion has the option to continue to be the X Division champion, or they can vacate the title in exchange for a championship match against the world champion. So similar to something like that, I think might be the way we'll go. So it'll be a very interesting deal here to award that Impact Grand Champion. In the meantime, though, Sammy's going to need some people to fight, and I can't think of anybody better for Sammy to take on than Bully Ray. And we'll give Bully some TV time, get him a little shine. We'll see if he's open to losing to Sami Callihan, despite keeping him strong and having an open match. We'll see. He is. All right. So he doesn't mind putting Sammy over. All right. That's good stuff. We'll take that. All right. So now we are going to look at building toward a massive Impact Grand Champion match. And I want to put 6 people sort of in the mix for that, and we're going to have them team together in a match here. So, let's see here. Impact Grand Champions. We want Johnny Impact on one side, and I love the idea of having Alex Shelley battle him out on the other side. So we'll have Eddie with Alex Shelley. We'll put Ty Dillinger, Sean Spears up there. Will Ospreay's got a championship. We'll put Marty Scurll in this deal as well, and Jay Lethal. So I like this Grand Championship. These 6 going after it. It gives us plenty of options leading into the August pay-per-view, because now we've got 6 guys that we can mix and match. We can tag, we can 6 tag, we can fatal 4-way, and then a 1-on-1. We can do a couple of triple threats, whatever we need to do. This is going to stay fresh. These 6 are going to stay involved and engaged in our booking leading up to the big payoff, which is the Grand Championship match at the one night only pay-per-view in August. All right, so those are our 2 co-main events. We're going to need somebody for the Lucha Bros to take on. I like the idea of the Briscoes, giving them that flexibility. That gives me flexibility with OVE as well, with them not being so heavily focused on the chasing after the tag team championships. I can get them involved with Sami Callihan and however we decide to book that. So that gives us a little bit of flexibility. And you'll notice that Killer Elite Squad, Harry Smith, and Lance Hoyt isn't on this list because Lance is on vacation for 2 weeks. He was a little fatigued, and it made sense just to rest him so that he's ready to go for the August pay-per-view. So we're going to use these guys to get the crowd going here and really tune them up, ready to rock and roll. The X Division with Will Ospreay. I'm gonna kind of backwards book this one a little bit, and we're gonna book Will and Rich Swann in a rematch. We'll call it his quote-unquote contractually obligated rematch for the X Division Championship. Unfortunately, Rich is not gonna win it. I like Rich Swann, don't get me wrong, but we've already put Will over. It doesn't make much sense the following day to have him drop that championship right away. Maybe if it had been a sort of a weird match where I was like, oh, I don't care who wins, and then I turn around and a person who won it, and I kind of think to myself, oh man, I really didn't want them to win. So we'll backwards book this one a little bit with Will still coming out on top. Then we can move on from there. And then we've got the Women's Division Champion. Tessa Blanchard needs somebody to fight. And Alicia Edwards, she's lucky she's up there alphabetically and she's married to Eddie Edwards. Otherwise, I would have gotten rid of her a long time ago. So, we have the debuting Talia Madison. We have Ivelisse, who has yet to appear in a match. And we've got Tessa. Those 3 together. And let's see, who else has some pretty solid momentum we can work with? Rosemary does. Sue Young does. Oh, that complicates things. Okay. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll put Rosemary and Sue Young in a tag team against Talia and Ivelisse. And Tessa can fight Io Shirai. No. Kira Hogan. I want to keep Kira on the map. She is a phenomenal talent. So if we can keep her in people's minds, and we'll even put Kira over in this first one. We definitely want to keep Tessa strong, though, as the champion. But we're going to 50-50 book this one all the way to the pay-per-view. All right, so we've got our first hour in the books, and it's basically the focus of the show right there. Primarily has to do with the tag team, or the championship title holders. So now we'll backfill the rest of the show with the remaining 60 to 65 minutes that we have. TJP, gonna need somebody to fight. He's a main eventer, and he needs to be on TV. And I like the idea of Zack Sabre and TJP one-on-one. This would actually make for a phenomenal X Division match, and I'm really glad that we have both of these guys on the roster, because this is a very intriguing match that I would love to see, honestly. And I don't want to go all out. I want to work the crowd on this one. That's going to be our opening match right there. Very excited about that one. Alright, and then we had some tag teams here. We're going to give the North some shine just because I like their work. Really like what the North has done in Impact Wrestling. So they're going to get a chance to come on TV with GOD, the Coffee Brothers, OVE, and, of course, the North. Congratulations, guys. You're going to be on TV. And we want to make sure that they are kept strong, make them look good. Same with the Coffee Brothers. Oops. Alright, there we go. As we continue to backfill our card here, we've got 80 minutes, so we've got 45 minutes to go. And we have burned up through our main eventers and our upper mid card guys. So let's see here. Well, let's put Dalton Castle and Eli Drake together. I wonder what these two can do in the ring. Very curious by this. Did I turn up the intensity on that? I did. Okay. Okay, and I was going to do that tag team matchup in the women's division. So we'll do Evilise and Talia, who are both making their debuts, against Su Yung and Rosemary. We'll give them ample TV time. 10 minutes. How's that? There we go. Alright. So a minimum of 15 minutes left, maximum of 25 minutes, and let's go. Harry Smith against Flip Gordon. Book Flip. Who doesn't love Flip Gordon? Dude's awesome. Puts on a hell of a show. Really glad to see him getting a little bit of shine with being the Elite. Pretty cool stuff, actually. Alright, so I want to make sure that Flip actually looks good in this match against Harry. Alright, and we'll give ourselves a true main event. Actually, I can't do that because Bully will probably keel over and die. But might be able to pull off going 18 minutes with this one, but we're not going to make him go all out. We are definitely going to slow build it. And we'll push that back. Alright, so we're ready to go. There's our card for this TV taping, Impact Wrestling. I had to go a little bit deeper in the card than I usually would, just because we had a lot of one-on-one matchups and not a whole lot of tag team matchups. Playa, Holla, 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 had a lot of those last time, so we're going to vary it up a little bit. We've got a lot of setting up to do for getting to the next pay-per-view, so we're going to kick it off with the post one-night-only show. And we're off to a pretty decent start. Great action, average heat. TJP beat Zack Sabre, so we know that that's a good match. Unfortunately, Josh Matthews and Jimmy Jacobs don't do it justice, and that brought the match down a little bit. Another decent match that played well. Looks like the Girls of Destiny took down those other tag teams. We also had Harry and Flip didn't click, and it was an awkward bout, and Flip beat Harry. Wow. All right. Women's division match was pretty good, actually. Rosemary and Sue Young surprisingly had excellent chemistry together. Didn't win the match, but that's okay because they put on a great show. Eli Drake and Dalton Castle, about the same thing. Kiera Hogan and Tessa Blanchard didn't go as well, but Kiera beat her. Kiera beat Tessa Blanchard, which is our 50-50 booking that we're looking to do for that. We've got the match of the night so far, the Briscoes and the Lucha Bros, and that got us the B-. Great match there. Rich Swann and Will Ospreay kind of let me down. C- rating. Wow, I was expecting more out of that matchup. And Bully Ray, Sami Callihan got us a C+. Good chemistry together too, so we'll keep that in mind as we continue to build towards that pay-per-view. And the Grand Champion setup here, kind of let down by the announcing quality. C+ matchup though, and Alex Shelley, Eddie Edwards, and Marty Scurll with the W. Show increased in popularity in 21 regions. That's what we're looking for at this point, is just getting better and becoming more popular in as many regions as possible as we continue to work to build Impact up. And as long as those notes come back that the show is increasing in popularity, we're doing pretty good for ourselves. So we'll go to the next day. We'll flip over and talk about TNA's World Tag Team Championships again. The first ever Total Nonstop Action Wrestling champions in the this is now the NWA Tag Team titles have been given to TNA, and they have total control over them. AJ Styles and Jerry Lynn, tag team, pick up the win in weekly pay-per-view number 3 back in 2002. They beat the Rainbow Express. Then you had Vince Russo step in, and Vince Russo did what Vince Russo does and strip the titles, bro. It's a swerve, bro. America's Most Wanted, Chris Harris, James Storm, took the titles after that, and then it was just absolute shit show. Pardon my language, but it was terrible. The next year and a half was absolute garbage. Now, if you are not a hardcore Total Nonstop Action Wrestling fan, and I gave you names of the tag team that held the longest run between 2002 and how far can I go here? And end of 2004, you'd never guess it. right? You had tag teams that held the titles like Triple X, Chris Daniels, Low Ki, and Elix Skipper. You had America's Most Wanted, Chris Harrison, James Storm. You had Three Live Crew with Brian James, Road Dogg, Ron Killings, R-Truth, and Conan. You had AJ Styles and Abyss. You had Bobby Roode and Eric Young teaming up together with Team Canada. The team that held the longest run in TNA in the World Tag Team Division. Johnny Swinger and Simon Diamond. Yeah. Yep. Patrick Kenny and Joseph Dorgan were your longest reigning tag team champions between 2002 and late 2004. 91 days was their longest run. So this title had so much turnover in it, it almost made it irrelevant. Like, it didn't really mean anything. There wasn't any prestige to it. It just was kind of handed out willy-nilly. And then in 2005, you had Chris Harrison, James Storm win it for the 5th time together. 100 days. Then Chase Stevens and Andy Douglas came in and held it for 162 days. And then that was probably that was the longest run until, and it kind of gave some consistency to it too, the back-to-back 100-plus day tag team reigns. But then you had the Naturals step in and held it for 3 days. Then America's Most Wanted got it back for the 6th time, held it for 250 days, and then it bounced around a little bit before you get to 2006 when LAX, Latin American Exchange, held it for 175 days, right near my hometown. I don't live in Plymouth Township, Michigan, but I'm not too far from Plymouth Township. That match there in 2006. And then Team 3D shows up in 2007, and they are the final NWA TNA Tag Team Champions. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the post-TNA NWA Tag Team reigns. Killer Elite Squad really is probably the biggest name tag team to hold those titles, with the exception of Villain Enterprises with Brody King and PCO, who is Pierre Willette. Still wrestling, still doing his thing. He's tagging up with Brody King and Marty Scurll. But Brody and PCO won the titles back in April, and they've held them ever since. But really, the biggest name outside of that, the first post-TNA era NWA Tag Team Champions, the Real American Heroes, Carl Anderson and Joey Ryan. And they beat Billy Kidman and Sean Waltman and the tag team of Incognito and Psychedelico Jr. in a triple threat. So, not really a who's who here of names for this title after TNA left it, but that's okay because Billy Corgan is really doing some great stuff in NWA now. I'm really looking forward to NWA just taking off. All right, so we've got unread emails waiting here. We'll get to the now post-NWA TNA World Tag Team Champions here in just a little bit. And you want to talk about just craziness when it comes to booking. I got a good one for you there. But we have unread emails waiting. Most likely it's the report from the ratings. I don't see any messages here, or any news reports here, I should say, where our promotion has some issues with TV. So I think we're going to be okay, as a matter of fact. And the Impact Wrestling report, the show was great. It was only seen by 3,600 people in the building, but it was great nonetheless. So let's check out our email here. Sean Ricker has a contract offer from Evolve. Sometimes they do written deals, I think. Yeah, but his is paper appearance, so he's whatever. Dave Christ has an Evolve contract offer. I definitely want to renegotiate with him, put him on an exclusive written deal. Please and thank you. All right, let's see. Eli Drake. Who else? Johnny Impact and Phoenix. Grueling schedule. All right, ratings. That's what we're looking for. Impact draws a 0.28. We are up from last week. That's awesome. 0.35 kept it the same. Not great, but we're not going backwards. And a 0.81 on pop. So again, not going backwards, and that's what this is all about, is keeping that momentum moving forward. All right, so we're going to go a little bit farther into the month than I normally would. Normally we would end it here, but I'm going to keep going because I want to go through the month end, and I want to see where we stand profit and loss wise. While we wait for the day to cycle through, we'll get back to the Impact World Tag Team Champions post NWA. The very first true TNA World Tag Team Champions in 2007 was the Dudleys, Devon and Bully Ray. At the time, Brother Devon and Brother Ray, but eventually they would become Devon and Bully Ray. Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle both actually held these championships by themselves. And this is a really weird thing here. So, there was a tag team match, Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle against Team 3D. Now, it was a winner-take-all match. So, if Joe got pinned by one of the members of the Dudleys, they would win Joe's X Division title. If one of the Dudleys pinned Kurt Angle, they would have won not only just Angle's TNA World Championship. Now, if Joe had pinned one of the Dudleys, he and Angle become the tag team champions. And if Angle had pinned, same story. The only thing is, Joe pinned one of the Dudleys and decided to be the tag team champions by himself. And then, in a weird one-on-one match, Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe, winner take all. This match, Kurt Angle put the TNA World Heavyweight Championship and the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship on the line against Samoa Joe and his Tag Team Championship and his X Division Championship. Kurt Angle won that match and subsequently he was Kurt 4 belts right there, right? He's got the X Division title. He's got the Tag Team Championships by himself. He has the TNA Heavyweight Championship and the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. He essentially became a Triple Crown winner in TNA overnight. Then he decided he was going to team up with Sting in a tag team championship match, and technically this is considered a retention of Kurt Angle's tag team championships. So Angle held them for 28 days, although his tag team partner only held them for 13. It was weird. And then, as if that wasn't crazy enough, Kurt Angle and Sting, two of the greatest wrestlers on the entire planet, lost the tag team championships in September of 2007 to R-Truth, which, R-Truth, get you some. He was an NWA champion. And Pac-Man Jones of NFL fame. Yeah, I didn't understand it either. So eventually, Pac-Man Jones would go back to the NFL, and R-Truth would then team up with Consequence Creed, who is Xavier Woods now. And they would lose the titles to AJ Styles and Tyson Tomko, who were partnered up with Christian for whatever reason. And then the title kind of bounced around for a little bit. Beer Money, you saw them kind of come to form in 2008. They battled back and forth with Team 3D. The main event Mafia was right around this time in 2009, with Booker T and Scott Steiner handling the tag team stuff. Magnus and Doug Williams start to come along and do their thing. Matt Morgan went solo when him and Hernandez won the titles. The Band, which was really, really fucking stupid. I hated this gimmick. Eric Young, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall. Hated it. Hated it. Thankfully, or not so thankfully, Scott Hall had some issues with the law around this time in 2010, and they vacated the titles, which allowed Motor City Machine Guns to pick them up and run with them. They would eventually lose them in 2011 to Beer Money Inc., and then the titles bounced around again to all kinds of different tag teams. Daniels and Kazarian held them a couple of times at this point. Chavo and Hernandez held them for a little while. And then you get to 2013 when the wheels started to slowly fall off of Impact Wrestling, but at the same time, the tag team division was incredible. You had Bromance with Robbie E. and Jesse Goddard. You had the Wolves, Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards. You had the Hardys. You had Revolution with Abyss and James Storm. A lot of different tag teams going on there. The Beatdown Clan was right around this time. Loki and Kenny King. Austin Aries and Bobby Roode were teaming up. You had a lot of different things going on around this time in 2015. And then into 2016, you kept that going with the Wolves. Beer Money was doing their thing. Decay came along at this point, and they put Crazy Steve with Abyss. The Hardys and the Broken Hardy gimmick, and the Brother Nero thing for a little while. And then that took you into 2017, where it was LAX and OVE doing their thing, the Lucha Bros at this point, and then there's this weird hiccup in the universe where Eli Drake and Scott Steiner win the tag team championships. I don't understand it. Very, very strange. But then things they right the ship and get back to a fantastic battle for these championships with OVE, LAX, and the Lucha Bros. And now you've got the North, who are the current tag team champions, beating LAX a couple of days ago, about a week ago, I think, a week ago today, if I can math correctly. So as tag teams, the number of title reigns, Beer Money Inc. and the Wolves are both 5-time champions since the inception of the TNA Impact World Heavyweight Championship. Now, if you were to add the NWA championships, that's going to be a lot higher than that. James Storm is actually a 7-time champion, Impact champion. Bobby Roode, a 6-time champion, but James Storm also won the tag team championships with a different partner other than Bobby Roode and Beer Money Inc., and that was when he won them with Abyss. And they won the tag team championships there. Now, if you were to add the NWA championships with this too, James Storm is going to be like a 1,000,000-time champion. Him and Chris Harris won the NWA tag team championships a ton of times, I think 6. So he'd be the 13-time tag team champion. That's just insanity to me. But that wraps up sort of the history of the TNA Impact World Tag Team Champions. We're getting close to the end of the month of July in our world here. We've got some heel face turns going on, some injuries happening. Hartley Jackson getting called up here for WWE. And looking around, doesn't look like there's any issues. Some TV problems for JWP, Japanese Women Pro Wrestling. Yeah, that's pretty much it. News-wise, we've got some emails here. Jake Christ is pissed off that he's not retired. Dave Christ is also pissed off that... No, he's not. Just kidding. And then Naito, who is not on our roster, but we've got him shortlisted, so we can kind of keep tabs on him as his career moves along. Corneal lacerated his eyeball. Ouch. That sucks. All right, so we'll head to the next day, which I believe is Sunday, week 1, August 2019. If I remember exactly the day that the months turn over, the weeks turn over. I believe they turn over on Sunday. It might be Monday, so we may have to go one more day. We'll take a peek. But I'm very pleased with how Impact Wrestling has come along so far in this series. It's going to take a minute for us to get there, but that's going to be part of the fun and all of that. So yeah, it's Monday that the weeks turn over and the months turn over. Lots of news happening on a Sunday, which usually it does. And nothing that really catches my eye in terms of things that we need to be made aware of. AEW has a new tag team. Triple X2 with Chris Daniels and Low Key. They won the tag team titles a few times in their day. All right, so we'll go through the month end here. A lot of shows running today. Yeah, I came across a very interesting question the other day a friend of mine posed to me, and it was whether or not I felt that the territories would do well now. And it's a very interesting question because, on the one hand, you have a world where technology allows us to see things happening a world away instantaneously, with little to no hiccup or delay. And back when the territories were a big deal, you didn't have that. It took you to see footage. It might take you a little while. Live coverage of territory events just wasn't really a thing back then. If you lived in Michigan, you weren't watching, the deep South wrestling. You weren't watching, this is pre-cable days. You didn't get, Smoky Mountain. You didn't get any of that. Every once in a while, you may get a star that comes through your town, but really, it's mostly just the same guys who are kind of the table setters, and then you have these huge names or the mutually agreed upon world champion that will make the tour around the territories. Nowadays, with technology, it doesn't make sense for you to restrict yourself to one specific place. But at the same time, if you're trying to be frugal with your money and focus more on talent and production than you are taking the show on the road, then yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the true quote unquote indies, and I'm not talking like the Ring of Honors, the Major League Wrestlings, the Evolves, the so on and so forth. I'm talking about true independent promotions with little to no TV backing, with you know, guys who, and this is no knock on them, but guys that, might be a couple years past their prime that were once really big draws and can still draw money. And that's why they're still getting booked, is because they can still draw and they can still perform. Their best years are behind them, and I think everybody understands that. But it's that allure and that wow, I got to see, Shark Boy one more time, and he looked pretty good, and I got to see so and so one more time, and he was awesome, and it was really great to just sit down and pick his brain. And so I think that's um, that's a benefit of the territories. You get to see guys you wouldn't normally see, but nowadays it just doesn't make much sense unless you're purposely trying to be financially sound. So yeah, I mean, all right. So we're gonna move on to the next day here, and Candice LeRae got called up. Good for her. Um, let's see. Nothing really happening. All right, so we are. Oh, we lost money. Wow, we were looking good there for a minute. We were well over the $1 million mark, or the $100 million mark. We had made about $100,000. But then, as the month turns over and we start handing out checks, we took a bit of a hit, but not as bad as I had thought. I thought we might be more along the lines of losing $400,000 to $500,000. So, not bad. We're 3 days away from our next TV taping. Networks are scheduling, so we may take a look and see what we can do TV wise. But that's going to do it for this episode. We're going to get out of here. You'll start to see the live streams come later in the day here in the States. I took a new job, and so my mornings are no longer free, but my evenings are. So you'll see these coming along daily now at night as my time becomes available. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.